Hello, everyone. My name is Gavin Finn. Dalila, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invite. It's a pleasure for me to be with you.
Great to be talking to you. And of course, the topic for today is how the world of marketing is changing, and particularly given the uncertainty in which we're all operating and the increasing demands on marketing and on sales, and how marketers and marketing organizations are responding. So I'd like to just get started, Dalila, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little bit of your background and tell us a little bit about what you're doing at TE Connectivity.
Of course. I lead a team of marketers located across the globe, and together I would say that we contribute to growth. We establish strategies to help driving growth, enabling customers to access information, make a decision to their buying process. A lot of transformation in my group, in my company as well. I'm based in France. I work from home, travel to meet TE employees across the globe. This is something I love doing. I love being into a multicultural environment. TE Connectivity, the six makes electronic components for very diverse applications such as automotive, medical, sensors as well, appliances. So you wouldn't necessarily have heard about TE Connectivity, but you will find TE Connectivity products into your daily world, I would say.
Yeah, I think everybody is interacting with some form of TE Connectivity products, but just not knowing about it. You talked about the organization that you've built meets a lot of different needs and has been constantly evolving. And then you said that sort of now is the time where there's a lot of transformation going on. What's different now in the market and in your particular industry that's making it so that you and your team really need to think about this transformation that you're undergoing?
That's a very large topic. I would say that the first thing that I can think about as I would say one of the driving forces that has been driving this change is the fact that the buying decisions involve more stakeholders today than it used to in the past. So we need to work to convince and convert buying committees. It's not one person who's making the decisions today. That's one thing. We need to think about the fact that we need to convince, educate, and convert a buying committee, not just one person anymore. It can be procurement, engineers, you have influencers, you have multiple people as part of these buying committees. Another piece which is, I think, very important and that we really need to think about, the fact that generational changes, I would say, are driving greater self-serve and digital engagement. Today, to be customer, it's an individual like you and I, and those behavior that we apply them into our work environment, and we expect faster response. We also expect the ability to self-serve, sometimes with low touch, but certainly with a seamless experience across the entire buying journey. There is one number that struck me, Gartner research, I think from 2 years ago, that was saying that 55% of B2B buyers today are millennials. So those people, they are in the companies, they make decisions, and they make decisions with their own behaviors I've described earlier. Another thing that I can think about is the fact that there are new competitors and they are changing the market ecosystem. They move fast, and we need to adjust if we want to stay competitive and ahead of the trend, I would say. And the last driving force that I can talk to you about, and I'm sure everyone would certainly already know about this one. We have faced COVID-19. We have faced multiple crises over the past few years. Material shortages. There were, I remember in Germany, some flood as well, price increases as well. So there are a lot of, I would say, global dynamics, local dynamics, however we want to see this, and they are impacting the buying process as well. They are impacting, the customer behavior, their expectations. They want things fast. They want it yesterday. Those crises have leveled up the expectations that our customers have.
There's a lot there, and I'm sure everybody who is listening has experienced all or some of those things. And so to some degree, I think it's not just an issue for your market or your company, but for all B2B businesses across the board. And so I wanted to just ask you, let's get started with the first one you mentioned, which is that there are now buying committees which all have influence, and probably in the past correct me if I'm wrong, but you were selling mainly to a technical audience, and it was really the technical buyer that was making the decisions in the past.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. In the past, it was the case. It was a technical person who would talk to one of our sales engineers. The discussion would happen between them. But one thing is that most of the time today, for a product that we would tend to call the core at T, or even for products that we sell through the adjacencies, they have made their research online without talking to anyone, and they know already a lot. And when they engage with our own sales team, they have quite a good sense of what they think they want. So it's a very different dynamic.
Yeah, and I think this is something that many, many companies face. So a lot of companies built their whole culture around the best features and functions and feeds and speeds. And that was not just about the product, but it was about how they went about selling, what their competitive strategies were. And so this shift from saying that's part of it now, but it's not the total decision-making framework. And I think when you said that you now have to engage with a variety of different constituents, some of those constituents care about the technical issues, but I'm sure others care about broader issues that aren't just feeds and speeds. They may have to do with reliability, they may have to do with supply chain, they may have to do with the relationship overall, research and development, and where the organization is going might have to do with pricing models and a whole variety of different things. When you go from that feature function culture to this more, I think you talked about it as well, customer-centric culture, which is all about all the different dimensions of value for them, that involves a transformation for the whole company, not just marketing, I would imagine.
It does, because when, for instance, my staff would be working on launching a product, they don't focus on what you said, on what you've described, you're right. They don't focus on products or features. They look at value proposition, they look at differentiation, and they look at sharing that based on research, obviously, what is competition doing, what does the customer need, etc., etc. They share this with the sales team, and then we want this message, this value proposition, this differentiation to be used across the organization by all the customer-facing functions. So when a customer would go online, would go talking to a sales engineer, would receive an email or would attend a webinar, they would hear that consistent message. And that's how we try to enable this omni-channel experience as well. They might find different type of information depending on who they talk to when they engage, but it's going to be consistent, and it's going to be looking at more than the features. You're absolutely right.
And I think, what I see across the industry is that this is not something that every company has mastered yet. They're all sort of grappling with this. Some are just becoming aware that this is the competitive landscape in which they find themselves, and others are in that process but haven't really found their footing yet. And it seems to me that you've really taken this strategic approach with your global marketing team. Something you just said has to do with creating value propositions that everybody understands. No matter where the customer is, they're going to be sort of surrounded by these consistent value propositions. So that's a change within your marketing framework as well that you've had to do, but you also now are interacting with sales teams and product management and other kinds of organizations. But how has that transition been? Is that something that they were aware of that needed to happen? Were you, as the marketing lead, introducing them to this transformation and their need to change? What's that process been like?
What I can tell you is that we definitely spend an important amount of time aligning with our peers. I can share an example of how we have aligned and how we communicate, I would say, priorities, where we want to focus, how we are going to market. That we've created what we call the commercial engine team. And it started with the head of sales and myself, head of marketing for our business unit, getting together and bringing with us a few of our people and looking at what is it that we want to prioritize. We have also identified some, I would say, tactical areas that we want to do better, work differently, or just like deliver on together. But we have started with sales and marketing because we feel like that's potentially the core that absolutely needs to be aligned. We make sure that we align on the approach, and we make sure that we think together. That's one way, and that's the way we chose to make sure that our organization transforms while looking at the same priorities.
I think you've talked about a couple of different dimensions there that are interesting to everybody in the audience. One of them has to do with the leadership making that decision to work together, right? So it was the sales leader and you getting together saying, we're going to do this together up front, as opposed to later on figuring out how can we match what we've both independently done. So, I would say that that's relatively unusual in the industry from what we see in a variety of different companies in different verticals tend to not always be as aligned as you. And I think that that's quite unusual and very impressive. The second thing I think that's important there is that you've talked about putting a set of goals together. And are those goals related to revenue performance? Are they related to market share? What kinds of goals have you set mutually that are that team's collective goals?
They are related to growth acceleration, growth generation. We're going to assess us on a qualitative, how the teams work together. Are we actually functioning properly? Are we seeing alignment? Are we potentially seeing less frictions in our organization? Is everyone aware and understand what we want to achieve and why? I think that's one. And the other piece, obviously, is about growth. Contributing to revenue. Is there any money that is left on the table that we could capture?
Business goals as well as collaboration goals, which I think is another lesson for everybody to pay attention to. The thing that I'm always struck by is that these the technologies are very advanced. You've got tremendous advanced R&D in the way you design and engineer your products, and manufacturing technology is pretty advanced. But it is an industrial market, and those industrial markets tend not to be thought of as high tech. They tend, in the past at least, to have been thought of as very old school, relationship driven. And you mentioned earlier that you're moving much more towards a digital engagement strategy and hybrid selling and all of that. What have you seen with respect to the teams themselves and any potential human what's going on with the people and their perception of this change? Is it easy for them to change? Or are you seeing that some organizations are more receptive to changing the way that they do things? Keep in mind that your company's been around a long time. It's very, very successful. And people have built careers around one method or one set of processes that have worked very well for them for many years. Have you seen a tremendous resistance to change or a ready adoption of change?
Change is not easy. I think it requires a lot of agility from individuals in order to understand that one day you do one thing one way, but the other day you might need to be doing things differently. It's a mindset, I think, and obviously there is resistance to change. And some of these people may not ever embrace the change, but many of them do. I think there is adoption when people understand the value, the benefits for them, for their business, for the customers, for our company. It takes time. It takes a lot of education, a lot of discussion why we are going to work on these topics. It's not something that you do one day and it's done. It's something that you need to work on every day, that you need to remind people. You need some time to rehash, obviously. It's like in communication. Before the message is actually fully understood, you need to repeat it, 8 to 10 times, the same way, different ways, for people to remember what you want them to remember. It's a journey. It's not something simple. You need to prepare the change, but you need to walk with people hand in hand so they see some value in the end.
Yeah, so this constant reinforcement and reminding people why they're doing it, and not just relying on the fact that we had that discussion a year ago. Everybody should remember it. Yeah. It's just continuing to remind them about the importance and what's driving these changes and how it's going to help the company. One of the other things that you talked about is, it seems to me that T Connectivity's marketing organization has also undergone a tremendous change in your role. And I think that is an indicator and perhaps sort of a metaphor for how marketing in general, because of all of these changes, has really had to reassess its role in the organization. And rather than being seen as this sort of driver of advertising and printer of brochures and kinds of things that people did in the past, you've really taken on a central role in understanding and articulating this value story, but also in creating the customer engagement strategy, and then bringing the other teams into that strategic direction. Do you see the role of marketing changing within TE Connectivity, and also in the way that other people do their business, the way that the sales team works, the way that the product management team works, all of the rest of the organizations that are, in some ways customer facing? How has that changed their roles, given the fact that you're taking on so much more than what was traditionally thought of as marketing?
It's night and day. And you described it very well. It used to be more a mark-on function, a sales support function, doing those brochures and catalogs. And today we are sitting at the table, bringing our own voice to the discussion. And that's what I tell to my team. You need to understand the customers. You need to understand the competitors. You need to do your homework. You need to prepare so you can bring your own perspective to the discussion when you work with a product manager or a sales engineer, and you guys are working on launching a product or preparing a campaign for a customer. I look at how my organization will look like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I need to have people who understand the customers, who are commercially focused, who speak the same language than the business, who understand financials as well, who have the ability to work with data. That's a change that I'm driving into the marketing function at TE Connectivity. But that's a change that's not just for marketers as well. That's a change that I've discussed about with the sales function, as we've been talking about talent of the selling engine overall, adding things like ability to work with data, ability to play with digital tools. Today, they are a must. So yes, our jobs have changed. Our jobs will keep changing, and we need to understand that, be flexible, have the ability to learn fast, fail fast potentially, but always try. I think we are into this position where we can try new things, test a small scale, and see if that's working. It is working. Boom, you move on. You move fast.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And you have a sales background as well, even though it was not a major part of your career. It was part of your development, and I'm sure that mindset has influenced the way that you think in this new transformation. I was reflecting on what you were saying as you were talking about the shift to being more agile and taking on more tasks, but also being very commercially aware and driven by what the commercial issues are, which has not always been a focus for large companies, marketing organizations. The inverse of that is, you started by saying that your team and the marketing organization really needs to know the customer well, needs to know the segmentation, their problems, their challenges, so that you can create these value stories and the value propositions. I look at the sales organization and I see sort of the inverse. In the past, I think the sales teams were very focused on, not just at TE Connectivity, but in general in the industry, their products, their competitive differentiators, their feeds and speeds and pricing and all of that. And now, because you've taken on as marketing this much larger role in the way that customers engage and buy, the sales function has also changed, and they have to be better at understanding the customers and their segments and their challenges, because the customer is coming, as you said, to the table much better educated about our products and services. So now we have to engage with them at a more consultative level, which requires us to be better equipped about their challenges and their industry and their specific needs. Do you see that need for the sales team to also change their focus and their expertise and their skill sets to complement what you're doing in marketing?
I think sales know a lot about their customers. Particularly in my industry, they have an excellent relationship with their customers, which is very impressive. There is another layer that can and that must be added to this. This is the behavior of the customer that is hidden sales that they don't necessarily know about, they can't necessarily know about. And that's the thing that, in my opinion, they now need to take into consideration to adjust their own strategy, their own approach. And that's where marketing can come in and help them. We have that technology, we have that data, we have some information that we can and want to push to sales. So then they can, okay, my customer is looking at this, they're interested into this, but they're talking to me about that. Okay, now let's have a different conversation with the customer based on whatever I know from them. So I think that's the change, but there is an element which is hidden to them that they need to adjust to, so they can work with the bigger picture, with the 360 view, to potentially achieve more with the customers, more share of wallet. I want to help them identifying those pockets of growth, whether or not customer X, Y, and Z that they thought was not a priority back then actually should be thought through, because they buy, for instance, the same type of product to another company, or they look at information around our product offer on our website, and you might want to know about it because they buy that product elsewhere, but they come and get information from us. That's why this commercial engine is critical, because we will figure out together how we want to leverage that and where it's best to leverage.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Something you talked about was the sort of the confluence of a variety of dimensions of what you brought to the table today. One is customers wanting to do their own research. You mentioned a lot of self-serve or low touch earlier. You talked about digital and hybrid, talked about the changing relationship of marketing and sales. And all of this revolves around sort of a customer engagement strategy, creating the ability for customers to engage with your company without necessarily having to talk to people, so that customers, wherever they meet your company, wherever they touch it, see it, feel it, interact with it, they get those appropriate value stories to their segment and to their buyer personas and to their specific needs. How are you creating a vision for a customer engagement strategy driven by digital, but working in this hybrid world?
That's e-commerce. Our customers are able to buy online, on account, any products they want from ICT. 2 years ago, nobody would have expected that key OEM, major OEM, would make orders on e-commerce. Sales will even tell us that it's still not a thing for them. And the reality tells us that they actually want to have the choice, and that they are enthusiastic when shown the capability. 2 weeks ago, one of my employees in my organization read a report that was saying the more touch points you offer to a customer, the more market share you will get with them. I would say we have the vision, because we know that some of our customers want to buy direct, some through distribution, others would want to buy online, some will want to do several or all of these. And we know that a customer can migrate, I would say, across these channels very easily. So that's how we are thinking about that digital vision and digital strategy. Because in the end, it's not just digital, it's just the way the world we live in today. It's like you would say that in my organization, I have a digital group and I have a product marketing group, but in the end, product marketing happens through digital channels anyway. That B2B e-commerce is something we have spent a lot of time developing, planning for, and that we believe is going to be an asset for our organization and for our customers. And one of my employees told something that I like very much. He said, we are baby in the woods. We are learning in ways we didn't have before to adjust again what we are doing.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The notion that B2B companies were not well suited for e-commerce was a very well sort of established fact that people believed for a long time, and certainly during the pandemic, I think we saw that was not necessarily true even for large volume transactions or large high value transactions. When B2B talks about e-commerce, I think there's a misconception that it's all about the the transaction part of that, the very last step, which is, put in the purchase order number or the credit card and make the transaction. But B2B e-commerce is really about some of the things that you've talked about, which is giving the customer the ability to learn everything they need to know: product details, value stories, use cases, differentiated value, all in a digital environment, and then ultimately get to that digital step if that's right for them, for that psychographic, the psychodemographic for them. And so that last part, which is the buy here and put in your credit card part, is really the very, very last step, but it's not the only, and it's certainly not the most important step in that e-commerce framework for B2B. It's about doing everything that you've talked about, which is giving everybody the ability to learn about the company, to learn about their needs being met, and to engage with people along the way if that's part of their behavior, as you talked about, but not necessarily driving them to one channel or another, giving them all of those options. And I think, as you said, learning about how to create these customer engagement frameworks where they can engage with you and make sure that they're getting those consistent value stories and the consistent messaging, no matter who they're talking to or whether they talk to anybody at all. And then enabling that very last step, I think you're learning and maybe teaching along the way for a lot of B2B companies, that just giving them that ability is actually a growth driver as well for you.
Totally, it is.
I think you've brought a lot to the table, and I want to just summarize some of the things that we've all learned. One is that there are big changes in the way that customers are buying, both with respect to the generational preferences of engagement, whether it's online, offline, both hybrid, and moving back and forth in these channels. Another message that you've sort of given us is that there are multiple buyers within each of these constituencies. And so understanding their dimensions of value is very important. And that bringing sales and marketing together around a commercial vision based on understanding the customer better is really important. And so aligning those two different organizations or multiple organizations together in this entire journey is critical. And the other thing that you mentioned about this transformation process is not just a digital transformation, it's really an organizational and a philosophical transformation. Involves constant reinforcement and adaptation and agility. Is there anything that you'd like to add that you can help our listeners and audience with respect to getting them to the point of what you've been able to accomplish?
Change is hard, but it's a good thing. It is important to understand that transformation is necessary for organizations to be successful. I would also say that the customer doesn't belong to one function anymore. It belongs to the company, and we are multiple functions who actually can bring value to the customer. If I can give an advice to all the marketers who might be listening to us today, use data, work on data, take it, analyze the data, create your own insight, your own perspective, and bring your voice to the table, because there is no shame in doing this. It can only add value to the discussion, and it can only be beneficial to the organization.
Well, great words of wisdom, Dalila, based on a lot of experience and expertise and great success that you've had. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real delight, and I look forward to continuing our engagement.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.